force immigration laws. Our correspondent Carlden Ongmu was at the protests in Johannesburg and filed our cover report this week.
The exodus and escape from South Africa continues. Attacks on foreigners has also escalated, placing the entire nation on the edge. The attacks have coincided with a series of protests and marches in recent months by anti-immigration groups who have set what they are calling a June 30 deadline for people in the country illegally to leave and the government to take action against what they say is a growing problem of illegal immigration in Africa's biggest economy. Ngizwe Nkunu and Jacinta Ngobi Zuma are seen as the faces and masterminds of the rebellious anti-immigrant campaign groups, and this is what they have been advocating for months.
The countries of Africa are taking their own cabbage here in South Africa because we want peace, we want to rebuild our country.
If South Africans are the ones saying that on the 30th of June, we want to echo the call that illegal immigrants must have left the country, there's nothing wrong with that. And we're standing here to say exactly that the 30th of June was not announced by any of us, but because we are with the communities. We are the ones that know what the communities are saying to us. We are the ones that have seen the impact of what goes on because of illegal immigration.
While immigration becomes increasingly polarizing in the United States and Europe, Africa's leading economy is also confronting the issue. In the last 2 years, South Africa has deported more than 100,000 people, the Home Affairs Ministry says, were in the country illegally, while also stopping around 500,000 others at borders trying to enter without documents.
South Africans are engaged in an important conversation about the terms of migration to our republic. That is a conversation that we are also having with the peoples and leaders of our continent. The government is listening and responding to the concerns of our people.
The latest tensions have led to strong criticism of South Africa by several African countries, including Nigeria, Ghana, and Mozambique, who say their citizens are being targeted. Thousands of migrants have also left South Africa as tensions rise ahead of the June 30 deadline set by protesters. Around 10,000 Malawians had gathered at a temporary shelter in the eastern city of Durban last week, trying to return home. More than 8,000 of them have since left the country on buses provided by the Malawian government or private sponsors, but others continue to gather. President Cyril Ramaphosa's efforts of issuing warnings have landed on deaf ears.
As government, we have put in place security and other measures to deal with any attempts to destabilize our country, whether by citizens or foreign nationals, and we will not tolerate any attempts to destabilize the country by anyone, whether marching or otherwise. Our security forces are ready, and those who transgress the measures that we are putting in place will definitely meet the might of the law.
The unofficial deadline for undocumented migrants to leave South Africa has arrived. Thousands have already departed, while hundreds more remain awaiting repatriation. Although South Africa has experienced xenophobic violence before, this is the largest repatriation effort in recent years. As the country enters a new phase, questions remain over what comes next. President Cyril Ramaphosa says undocumented migration is only one challenge, warning that blaming foreigners alone will not solve South Africa's deeper problems.
Let's move on now. Sahel countries, particularly Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger, are severing ties with France to reclaim national sovereignty, escape post-colonial dependency and pivot towards new international alliances. Burkina Faso decided to cut diplomatic relations after conducting what it described as a comprehensive review of bilateral ties. France's influence in the Sahel began to decline several years ago following the failure of Operation Barkhane, whose stated objective was to stabilize the region and eliminate jihadist groups operating across West Africa. Relations between Burkina Faso and its former colonial ruler worsened after Captain Ibrahim Traoré seized power in a coup in 2022 and pursued largely anti-Western policies. The French Foreign Ministry called the decision hostile and unfounded and said it illustrated the troubling drift by the Burkinabe government. France also urged nationals in the country to exercise heightened vigilance. Soon after he took power, Captain Traoré expelled French troops. His government has accused France of having a secret agenda and pivoted towards China and Russia.
This situation is reflected, among other things, in the relentless actions of the regime currently in power in France against the interests of Burkina Faso, its openly proclaimed neo-colonial ambitions manifested through active support for subversive networks and terrorists who continue to plague our country and the Sahel, and the deceitfulness and bias of statements and opinions about our country aimed at turning it into a pariah within the international community.
The junta pledged to restore democracy in 2024, but reneged on this promise and formally dissolved political parties in January this year. In January 2025, Burkina Faso, along with two neighboring military-led states, Mali and Niger, officially broke away from the regional West African bloc, ECOWAS, to form a new group called the Alliance of the Sahel States. France has had no ambassador in Burkina Faso since January 2023. In 2024, the country expelled 3 French diplomats, accusing them of subversive activities. France denied the claims.
All we know is that if you want to break with these imperialist forces, it's simple. We denounce the agreements. It all starts there. I think the example of Chad, in any case, is palpable. They started by denouncing the agreements. Otherwise, if you don't denounce the agreements, just say that the bases are leaving, you've done nothing, because the problem lies in the colonial defense agreements that have been signed since independence.
In January this year, political parties in Burkina Faso were formally dissolved by the military government, which has also seized all their assets in a move analysts say is a major blow for democracy in the West African nation. Landlocked Burkina Faso is grappling with several armed groups which have seized control of land in the country's north, south and west. These include the Al-Qaeda-backed Jamaat Nusrat al-Islam wal Muslimin, or Jainin, and Islamic State Sahel Province, ISSP, which also operate in neighboring Mali and Niger.
Faced with these imperialist designs to dominate our country and subjugate our people, we have chosen the path of responsibility and sovereignty. The government wishes to emphasize that this decision in no way calls into question the historical, human, cultural, and social ties that unite the Burkinabe and French people. It concerns exclusively the institutional framework of diplomatic relations between the two states.
Once a significant power in northern, central and western Africa, France has seen its influence shrink in recent years, especially as many of its former African colonies, particularly in the Sahel, have distanced themselves and become more closely aligned with Russia and China. Africa Bureau, WION, World is One. Let's now talk about the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war, but in a different aspect. African involvement in Russia's war against Ukraine could be far higher than previously thought. The Ukrainian government says nearly 3,000 fighters have been recruited by Russia from across the continent, and more than 300 have been killed on the battlefield. Back home, only a handful of governments, including Kenya and Ghana, have publicly pushed back, raising concerns over recruitment and the fate of their citizens. But for one group, the uncertainty is even deeper. Those who have been captured are saying that they have no access to what is really going on in Ukraine, where African men are now caught between war, politics, and an uncertain future.
Erastus Mundia left Kenya on a work program his government had arranged with Russia. He died on the battlefield in Ukraine, and his family holds Labour Minister Alfred Mutua responsible. Mundia was a 38-year-old father of 3 when he left in June 2025, one of hundreds of Kenyans promised well-paid civilian jobs in Russia, only to be forced to sign contracts with the Russian army, often at gunpoint. Most received little military training, many died on the front lines in Ukraine.
This son of mine, if he is dead, the government should make an effort and at least bring his body back to me. At least, even if it is to bury him, let me bury him so that I know I buried my son. And if he is still alive, let me know that he is alive, that he will come back. But I don't believe Erastus is alive because there has been no communication of any kind from that time until now. I have received no communication from him up to this moment.
Kenya officially estimates that 291 of its citizens have been victims of Russia's irregular military recruitment, including 19 dead and 32 missing. But a report by the Kenyan intelligence services puts the figure at over 1,000 and says officials were complicit. Labour Minister Mutua was personally and politically involved in the scam.
Alfred Mutua, both as an individual and as a minister, is directly responsible and should be charged, should be pushed to account. And if the Kenyan authority do not pursue this justice on the context of Alfred Mutua being prosecuted, then I think the families will have no option but to go to the international courts to then pursue justice from that level.
Mutua was initially Kenya's foreign minister when President William Ruto came to power in 2022. He hosted his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov in May 2023, 15 months after Moscow's invasion of Ukraine, with Kenya keen for diverse trade links despite its close ties to the West. After he was moved to the Labour Ministry in August 2024, Mutua took charge of a work placement program that has sent more than 400,000 Kenyans abroad. Kenya relies heavily on remittances from workers abroad. They were worth more than $1 trillion shillings, that is $7.7 billion last year, according to the government. Vocal Africa has dealt with more than 500 cases of Kenyans being forced into the Russian army, of which some 350 families know their relative has died.
This is a very serious challenge and a very serious phenomena, and the government of Kenya is constantly working to try and rescue these Kenyans, some of whom have deliberately found themselves in these areas.
In May 2025, Mutua was questioned in Parliament about recruitment fraud for workers going to the Gulf. Mutua has so far escaped any reprimand, let alone criminal charges, to the consternation of the victims' families. The scale of the Russia scandal means Mutua has nonetheless been sidelined. When Kenya sent Foreign Minister Musalia Mudavadi to Russia in March to gain assurances that no more of its workers would be forcibly recruited, Mutua was barred from joining the delegation. Africa Bureau, WION World is One.
Rwanda's renowned Inyambo cows symbolize the nation's rich cultural heritage. Historically associated with royalty, they are now pampered with poetry and music at a museum in Nyanza. Take a look.
A flute here, a line of poetry there. This is the daily routine for Rwanda's royal cows that have become living symbols of the nation's cultural heritage. With their long and crescent-shaped horns, the Inyambo cows graze at the King's Palace Museum in Nyanza and at the homes of some of Rwanda's richest people, including President Paul Kagame. The breed is descended from the distinctive Ankoli cattle of East Africa and is also found in neighboring Uganda and Burundi. The Inyambo have long been associated with nobility as they were raised in royal courts where they symbolized wealth, prestige, and power. Bijira Jr., a curator at the King's Palace Museum, says they are sacred symbols.
They're not for milk, they're not for meat. They will just be used as decors around the palaces. They would parade them around, they would use them in ceremonies, basically around the king's court. The kings would basically present them to the other kings that had visited the palaces for people to admire and see and say, yeah, they're looking good, basically.
Even though the monarchy no longer exists in Rwanda, so revered are the cows that the traditional gifting and exchange among kingdoms has been embraced by Kagame. The president's practice of giving cattle to heads of state has even been called in local newspaper reports, Inyambo diplomacy. As Rwanda seeks more tourists, it is investing heavily in places like the King's Palace Museum, where the Inyambo cows are the main attraction. The cows are pampered with melodious poetry describing their beauty and calling them by their names. This is believed to calm the cows ahead of major events where they are presented to visitors or during traditional ceremonies.
So traditionally when women are dancing in a way, you'll notice that they tend to raise their arms a little bit wide. So those would basically, they're more or less mimicking the different shapes of the royal cows. So their dance is more or less in a way to portray the beauty of the royal cows. Not their beauty per se, but the beauty of the royal cows basically. That is why they do a lot of that movement of the hands in a way.
The cows were reintroduced around the King's Palace Museum in the early 2010s as part of a conservation initiative. It is not known how many of them remain. To younger generations being introduced to the breed at the museum, the cows are part of Rwanda's heritage and identity.
A tailor who lost his sight completely due to glaucoma has found ingenious ways to continue sewing accurately. When Charles Kibe lost his sight in 2017, he also lost customers, but now his business is thriving.
Charles Kibe has not let his disability hold him back. He walks through Nairobi's Umoja estate with the help of a cane. Tucked away here among rows of businesses is his own shop. This is where he works every day, repairing and making clothes. Kibe began losing his sight in 2013 and was completely blind by 2017.
I grew as a normal child, and when I reached adulthood, I was diagnosed with glaucoma. In other words, the physicians say it's pressure of our eyes. So from there, I walk, and up to now, I live bright.
But rather than letting the diagnosis ruin his livelihood, he has found ingenious ways to make sure he can still sew as accurately as if he could still see. His measuring tape, for example, has some adaptations that help him do his job.
The tape measure has 60 inches, so I marked it with scissors. cracks from 1 inch, 2 inch, up to 60. So when I count, I do this with a finger. So I gotten right.
Kibe began dressmaking and tailoring in 1990 and had many clients. However, when he became blind, many customers abandoned him. Kibe then resolved to prove them wrong and is gaining new customers one day at a time. Kibe's determination, despite his challenges, has seen him gain new clients who have confidence in the quality of his work.
At first I was worried, like a human being, like any other human being, I was a bit worried, but later when I saw people bringing clothes to him and I saw his work, then I gained the confidence. Yeah, so I managed to bring my clothes and later he made some clothes for me.
The blind tailor's innovative solutions have saved his career. Africa Bureau, WION World is One.
Thank you, Africa, for watching the show this week. Get in touch with us on our website and social media platforms and share your stories with us. Would love to highlight them to the whole world. This is WION World is One, and I'm Eric Njoka. Goodbye.
India's Global Voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is One.
The stress of our world can take a toll